Okay, now this is a small channeling session that I want to do, and channeling has been very big in my life. I've been familiar with channeling for many years, and I regard it simply as mediumship. Such as if you're on YouTube, you look at YouTube as being a channel, you put information on there, you make videos on there, and you channel your creations to other people, to your subscribers, to the world. The spiritual world channels through individuals, and part of what I like to do is communicate openly with my spirit guides that come from the chakra system. Each individual has many spirit guides, multiple spirit guides. Even animals have spirit guides. Any creature in physical reality has spirit guides, because all people and all creatures come from the spiritual world. And while we're here having this experience, we naturally have guides. For me, I look for positive information that's going to guide me to make better choices or help me to make recognitions and realizations of things that are too deep for my ego mind to process by itself. Some things are just out of my comprehension. And just like somebody who's deeply religious goes to church and prays for an answer, sometimes you got to wait 2 weeks to get that information. That's channeling. So again, for each chakra, you have a spirit guide that helps you deal with the emotional struggles, the themes that you're going through on that particular chakra. And I've worked with that for at least a couple years now. And more so what I'm doing now is working with ancestral spirit energy, ancestral guides. And being that, because of my genetics, I'm mixed, I have different ancestral connections coming from, Africa, right here, Asiatic lines through the American Indian, Europe. And so I have different sorts of connections to different ancestral genetic lines. And these genetic lines have allowed me to absorb information differently. So I get one perspective, then another perspective, then another perspective. I'll give an example. A lot of times I like to connect with the American Indian ancestral guides that I have, and I will go out into nature. Sometimes I will leave tobacco, like I'll take some tobacco from a cigar or a cigarette and crumble it out, put it in my hand, and leave it there for the spirit as a sign. That's a sign to the American Indian. That was a big practice of them, giving tobacco or giving candy. Take a piece of candy out of the wrapper and leave it for them. Stacking rocks. American Indians were big on stacking rocks. Sometimes you would stack rocks in threes. So I openly communicate through the spiritual world through my activity, sort of very much shamanic activity, and I ask for answers. And I've deeply been able to connect with spiritual entities coming from my ancestral path, coming from the American Indian, who have lived in the area I live at, or have lived in other areas I live at, whether it be the forest or the desert or wherever you're at. You can communicate with these spirits and get information and get recognition that you need. The biggest information that's come through recently for me has been from different sorts of ancestral spirits that I have. But what they communicated is me, myself, but people in general need to learn more about location. The vibration that you're giving off will send you to different locations. So if you're feeling a certain way, instead of staying where you're at, you need to go somewhere else to harvest that energy. If you're in a real good mood and you got a lot of inspiration, and something's telling you to just leave and go on a walk far away or get out of town and go somewhere, that's how your spiritual guides and your ancestral spirits are communicating with you. They want you to go to these areas because the electromagnetic frequency is different in different geographical areas, and there's different spirits who can openly communicate with you, and they might be leading you to other people. Your spirit guides might be communicating with somebody else's spirit guides to lead you to them. Or there might be a recognition or an awakening for you to be in that area and see something. You know, you might need to be there just to see one thing to help you put the theme in your life that you're dealing with in the proper perspective. And so for me, that's been big for me. Sometimes I used to do this a lot. I go out walking, daytime, nighttime. You know, I'd go down by where I'd go find water, like a lake or a river, or I would go to an area where, you know, the clouds looked a certain way and something would be driving me there. And I would see something or experience something that would make sense for me, or I'd meet somebody there. You know, there was one time where the energy was telling me to go somewhere, and I followed that energy, and then there was somebody there, and I started speaking to the person, and everything I was looking for the last couple of weeks clicked in. All the answers came in. So, you know, for people who, and this is big in Africa, that the indigenous people in Africa always communicate with ancestral spirits. They always go back to leave things for their ancestors at the graveyards, and they communicate with their ancestral spirits. So if you're somebody you have a Celtic background, say you're Germanic and you have a Celtic background, or, you know, a Viking background, maybe you have to get, you know, maybe you can create what's known as a fetish. You take, you know, some rocks and some sticks and stuff, and you put something together. That's known as a fetish. You put something together that resembles something they had in common. You know, so if you're American Indian, you might make a little medicine pouch. You know, if you're coming from a Germanic line, Viking, you might make a certain sort of necklace or whatever. If you're coming from, if you're Chinese, you know, you might put something together with jade stones or something the ancient Chinese used. And that will connect you greater to these ancestral spirits, and it will leave you open for more information from them. And, you know, if you're religious, you just look at it as, you know, you have Catholic people who go to communion, and they take bread, and they eat the bread of Christ, and they drink the wine of Christ, and that puts them more in communion with Christ. Same thing with the idea with channeling your ancestral spirits. You do activity that puts you more in union with them. Okay, that's enough for right now.